So when I was a young doctor, I was repeatedly called to see patients who had chronic diarrhea. Usually the surgeons or the internists would call me, and they'd say, Dr. Nessie, this patient clearly has psychogenic diarrhea. We've checked her bowel. It was almost always a woman. We can't find any bad bacteria in there. Now, it's almost as certain that these poor women had had multiple attempts to use antibiotics to cure them, and they had C. diff or some other kind of overgrowth phenomenon. This is a really serious mistake. Everybody was thinking about bacteria as being bad back then. I think that's really changed now, has it?
Yeah, I think so. I think for the longest time, people thought of microbes as villains, as an antagonists that we needed to destroy. I think there are many reasons for that. The biggest one is that people like Pasteur and Koch discovered within very quick succession that microbes were responsible for a lot of illnesses. So, after germ theory was confirmed, we realized that tuberculosis and leprosy and cholera and all these, age-old plagues that have been affected, and plague, all these things that had affected humans were all, since time immemorial, were the work of bacteria. And so bacteriology and microbiology became about defeating these foes. And then, then there was a wave in which people looked at things like E. coli as stand-ins for more complex organisms. And then microbiology became what I've heard described as a sort of handmaiden science, like a way of things that you study so that you can get insights into more interesting and complex organisms. And I think they only became really valued as study subjects in their own right pretty recently. And I think their role, their benefits in our lives were only really appreciated quite recently. There's actually been a long history of thinking about that. So even Pasteur felt that if you robbed someone of all their microbes, they would probably die. So people have thought about the benefits for a while, but I think it's only in the last maybe a few decades or so where that beneficial side to the microbes around us has become not just something that people in the periphery of biology were talking about, but actually a very mainstream
has it overshot the other way, do you think, at all? And people saying bacteria are actually good for us universally?
Yeah.
I have one anthropologist friend who, whenever he goes to a new country, he drinks the water from the rivers. And he might get sick, but he claims that it protects him from everything else.
Yeah, I think I do think that we have shifted. I do think the pendulum has swung to the other extreme. That now there are all these narratives about good microbes and bad microbes, friendly bacteria. And I feel that actually that is just as wrong. And I think if we take an evolutionary and an ecological perspective, we would understand that bacteria have been around for billions of years. It's their planet. We are just another habitat in which they live. And any relationship in biology has conflict attached to it. There's always there's the hosts and the microbes that they contain might have some overlapping evolutionary interests, but they also have there's also discord. There's also conflict, and there's always conflict.
So let's go on to the really big discords. Some microbes, especially viruses, actually take over the behavior of the individual. Is that right?
Yeah. So many microbes can change the behaviors of their hosts. So you talked about viruses. Rabies is a classic example, making their host more aggressive to further its own transmission. But it seems that even the microbes inside our gut can influence our behavior to an extent. We see this a lot in rodent studies, where gut microbes can influence everything from susceptibility to anxiety, to resilience to stress, to aspects of mood and personality. And I think the relevance of that to human behavior is still being investigated. But it seems entirely probable and plausible to me that the microbes in our gut could also influence the way we think.